What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome into another edition of the original Call to Post here on the network where we break down all the top races here in North America, thoroughbred horse racing that is. And of course, with me, as always, I have my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, doing great. Enjoying the summer, and I guess we're already looking at Labor Day next weekend. So hard to believe the summer has come and gone. That means we're also winding up the Del Mar season. Only have about 2 racing weeks left. So let's enjoy all the days that we can.
Amen. Definitely going to be talking about Del Mar. We got the Pat O'Brien we're going to be focusing on, but definitely the all eyes will be on Saratoga on Saturday, as we were talking before we hit record. 5 grade ones, 3 million over 3 million in purses between 5 races. We're going to break them all down for you a little bit later. Obviously, unfortunately, last week we did not record. Myself, I was at the track, so it kind of, getting a little hands-on there with the ponies. First time I've been to Del Mar since we went to the Breeders' Cup. I missed all of last year, started a new job, so I was just kind of getting focused on that. But yeah, it was nice to be back. A Thursday that, a lot of optional claiming, a lot of maidens, but it was great to be at the track, enjoy it, the smell. And part of it is the manure, the horse poop, if you will, but there is definitely a certain smell to it. And I don't know, I love it. I love Del Mar, everything they have to offer, even on, days where maybe the races aren't at the level we're going to be talking about at Saratoga here in a bit. But we are going to look back at a few weeks ago, a big weekend at Colonial Downs and Del Mar, but we are going to start with Saratoga. This was, of course, Saturday, August 12th, and thank you, Raider Jim, for putting this all together for us. But race 8, we had the Saratoga special, even money favorite, Rhyme Schemes does what need to be done, but Market Street, a horse that we definitely talked about at 13-1, came in second, and Hall at 5-2 finished in third. And then, of course, we also saw the 4-star Dave handicap, Casa Creed, pretty much 2-1. Annapolis, almost even money, 1-2. And then Ice Chocolates was a horse I talked about, came in just north of 11-1. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts going back a few weeks at the Saturday at Saratoga?
Yeah, that 4-star handicap. One of the horses that I had down on my card was the number 1 horse, Emmanuel. And Emmanuel broke bad, just couldn't rally out of that first turn, tried. I think ended up in the 2 or the 3 lane and kept trying to go wider, just never really got into the race. So just a bad race, but you definitely got the 7 horse on your ticket, which was great. And we both had Casa Creed and Annapolis. We backed both of those. Again, kind of an easy one. I think we even said it wasn't going to be a lot of value. You're going to have to bet big or don't bet at all type of a ticket. But Ice Chocolate helped the trifecta just a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, that'll put you up into that situation. The trifecta definitely got a boost from the exacta. I'll tell you that right now, because I'm sure the exacta might have paid maybe $5, if that. But it's really tough. Emmanuel obviously Breaking Bad, not only Breaking Bad, but Breaking Bad from the 1 post. I just think there's not a whole lot of room for error, because you don't have the wiggle room, right? You have to go right. You can't go left. Right. So if you break badly in the 5 spot or the 6 spot, hey, what's the best lane for you to go in? Not so much, unfortunately, on that 1 spot. So it's unfortunate, but look, that's unfortunately horse racing. Luckily, everybody was okay. And sometimes those things happen, but compared to the Saturday, we're going to be talking about Saratoga, a little bit of a mild one. But for Colonial Downs a few weeks ago, they had some big races. We excuse me, previewed those heavily the week before, but we'll start with the race 8, which was the Secretariat Stakes. Gigante finished first. Najirok finished second. There was a horse we talked about, and Silver Knot finished third. Finishing up, we had the Beverly Stakes. Fed Rover, horse we talked about as well, finished first. Gino Romantica and Romagna Mia. Very Italian flair to that one. Finished second and third. Moving on to race 10 was, of course, the Arlington Million set piece horse we definitely focused on, followed up by Santin and Adamo, Adhamo, I should say. And then unfortunately, some of our, Catnip was a horse I was pretty high on, never really got rolling, finished, I think, 8th. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the Saturday at Colonial Downs a few weeks back?
Yeah, that was one of those where it was sometimes you got it and sometimes you don't. And I don't feel like I had it too much on the Colonial downside. We had set piece, like you said. I also was looking at Catnip. I was looking at number 4, Atone, and Atone came in dead last. But again, bad start, got some bounced around a little bit, wasn't ever to contain. And so the jockey just kind of eased up on it, didn't bother to press the issue. And I don't blame him. I'd rather see that than to try to force something. And then, you get inquiries, you get injuries, you get things like that. So yeah, Colonial Downs, good races, just not my day at the track for that particular track.
Yeah, and luckily, the Saratoga kind of filled things in, but that's what happens. It's tough, especially at this grade. We don't preview a whole lot of optional claiming, maiden special weights. We're kind of only talking about the big ones, and when you get those situations, sometimes things get overlooked. But I really do think overall, the process got us there. And it's always done well for us. But yeah, Colonial Downs. And also too, that was kind of the first time I've really, focused on Colonial Downs. Obviously they have the Secretariat and Arlington Million, definitely a good amount of money back there on the East Coast, but a track that, definitely I'm not terribly familiar with. But on the flip side, a track that I am very, very familiar with. Of course, we had a few races at Del Mar that same Saturday. And we hit the trifecta in the Sorrento Stakes with Dreamfire, Benedetta, and Dua, respectfully. And then we also have the Yellow Ribbon, which was race number 9. Closing Remarks got the W. And then Spirit and Glory and Ganadora, 2 horses that we both talked about as well the week before. They finished 2nd and 3rd, respectfully. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts that Saturday at Del Mar?
Yeah, being on the Pacific Standard Time when you get to Del Mar, it kind of restored my faith in what I do when it comes to the horses, especially the Sorrento Stakes. That was a nice ticket. Yellow Ribbon, that was also not bad. Got placed, got the show. Did not have Closing Remarks. Had Turner Loose, looking at Turner Loose, and Turner Loose ended up coming in 5th. And Awake at Midnight, the 7 horse, just didn't get going. But all in all, no complaints. It was ended up being a pretty good day because of Del Mar.
Definitely. And that's kind of what it's all about. You can always hope on your home track to kind of lift you up on those days where maybe not everything is clicking back east. And that's the best part, because usually by the time the East Coast is wrapping up, the West Coast is getting rolling, and you can make a little bit of back. Kind of like NFL Sunday coming up. You lose a few in the 10 a.m. games out here on the West Coast. Don't worry, you got the 125s and maybe the 4:30 game to get you there, 5:30 game, I should say, to get you there. Same thing here in horse racing. But Raider Jim, you're always keeping an eye on the leaderboard at Del Mar. Why don't you let us know who's on top, jockey and trainer wise?
Top 3 jockeys, no surprise at the top. Juan Hernandez, 94 mounts so far. He's 26% in the winner's circle. Overall, 54% in the money. He has gotten just over $1.8 million in purse money so far. Umberto Rispoli, 100 mounts, 20% to the winner's circle, 60% overall in the money, 1.87 million in purse money. And again, we spoke about him after the first weekend, and he's continuing to just perform. Hector Berrios also has 100 mounts, 16% in the winner's circle, 38% overall in the money, 1.48 million in purse money. He's having a fantastic session at Del Mar. On the trainer side, we said to it going into the opening weekend, watch Phil D'Amato. He's going to have a lot of entries. He should have a pretty good season. Sure enough, right now he's sitting at the top of the trainer board. 86 starts, 17% have gone to the winner's circle. 44% of his mounts go in the money. He's just over 1.3 million so far this season. And there's that guy, Bob Baffert. Love him or don't love him, Only 36 starts. But here's the guy. He plays the quality, he's got the quality races. He runs and he wins. He's successful. In 36 starts, he's 33% in the winner's circle. He's got 56% overall in the money and just over $1 million in purse money. And then it goes down to Peter Miller, 68 starts, 15% winner circle, 43% in the money, and just over $668,000 in purse money. Now, this is based on percentages because, quite honestly, Doug O'Neill has actually banked over $800,000 in purse money, but he is, I think, 5th or 6th right now in the trainer standings. But that's the top 3 in both of those categories right now, and I don't see a lot of changes there. Baffert's going to have some horses coming up towards these last couple weekends, and watch out. Don't be surprised if he isn't at the top of the trainer board by the end of the season.
You said it. He picks and chooses, very wisely. And also, to be fair, Baffert also picks and chooses the horses he trains. There's, pretty much all the horses in his barn and under his care are going to be graded stakes contenders, or at least participants. And to see a 33% win percentage, and then 56% of the time getting in the money. Wow. That's Baffert. And then on the jockey side, I tell you what, to see Umberto Rispoli 60% in the money, that is really, really impressive. And then JJ Hernandez, a 26% win percentage. I mean, I feel like 20% is premier, and then to be, flirting with 30%, that's really, really good stuff there. But
and you wonder what is the effect of Flavien Prat being more on the East Coast this season as opposed to out here. I know he does come out and he's run a couple weekends, but he's been so busy back at Saratoga and on the East Coast circuit that we miss seeing him out here. But that's good though. It's kind of like when Joe Bravo came out here a couple years ago, and now Joe Bravo's a fixture out here. It's good to see the changes go around.
Definitely. And obviously, the end of the day, even Saratoga, obviously, like I said, that's where Flavien is this weekend. When you're handing out over $3 million between 5 races, you're going to get a lot of the top jockeys to head there that way. But I really also do think, no disrespect to the top guys here, obviously Flavien would probably be in this top 3. I'd be willing to bet some good amount of money on that if he was here full time. But to see a guy like Hector Berrios, who I don't want to say it's an unknown, but this is his best Del Mar I've ever seen. I think he's really jumped onto the scene. I think that's a guy who's really kind of taken advantage of the fact that, hey, not so much that the top jockeys aren't here, it's that he's getting better mounts. And I think that's the big thing now. And I think he's showing that, look, I can be on the level with the Rispolis, the Pratts, the Mike Smiths, guys like that. And when you get in your foot in the door there, who knows, maybe 5 years from now, we're talking about how Hector Berrios, he's back east, blah, 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 kind of the same way we're talking about Flavien Prat. But at the end of the day, obviously out here on the West Coast and back on the East Coast, not looking for great jockeys. There are so many good ones already out there. Probably some that aren't given a great opportunity because there are so many good jockeys, but we'll see how this kind of all shakes out. Good stuff going forward for these jockeys, and hopefully we will continue to talk about their successes. But speaking of successes, we're hopefully going to have a very successful Saturday like we had a few weeks back, especially at Saratoga. Once again, as I said, 5 grade 1 races here. Oh, and I don't have my notes up, but we have race 7. First one we're going to be talking about. We have the grade 1 Farigo for 4-year-olds and up, going 7 furlongs on the dirt. While I pull my notes up, Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Farigo?
Sure. I did a little bit of extra research like I like to do and throw the trivial facts out there. Forgo was an American Horse of the Year in 74, 75, and 76. That is why this, and has been honored by naming this race after that thoroughbred. And this horse is probably most famous of late because of last year's race, because this is when the favorite, Jackie's Warrior, met his match and was taken down by Cody's Wish, a horse that has become near and dear to a lot of people who follow thoroughbred racing. This year, it's kind of, to me, a slam dunk. There's only one true favorite out there, and that's the 3-horse Elite Power. Elite Power is going to be ridden by one of the Ortiz brothers, Irad Ortiz. Early morning line is already 1-2 on this horse. This horse has 8 straight trips to the winner's circle. Last 5 races include 1 grade 3, 2 grade 2s, and 2 grade 1s. Won the Vanderbilt handicap by a head. Gunite was winning, and then this horse, Elite Power, just shifted gears and got it at the wire. Now, Gunite, the number 2 horse, is going to be ridden by Tyler Gaffalone, trained by Steve Asmussen. This is not a money-making race. There's only 5 entries. Elite Power at 1-2. The 2 horse Gunite is at 6-5. The thing with Gunite, Elite Power has proved it can take over Gunite. And Gunite tends to be a stalker and lays back. It doesn't like to come out of the gate, boom, which is kind of to the disadvantage when it comes to Elite Power, because Elite Power isn't that horse that wants to go out and just, do a wire run. It kind of just like lets everybody else set the pace, and then is also willing, not so much stock, but just, happy to be in his happy place in the middle of the pack, if you will. So we'll see what happens on that. And then after that, it could be anybody's race. High Oak is the long shot, which you can kind of eliminate. That's the horse on the rail at 30-1. If any other horse could fill in underneath, Pipeline, the 4 horse, is interesting. Pipeline is a horse that wants to break out of the gate and set the pace, but it doesn't seem to be, if I look at it historically, does not have the stamina to break fast and keep the lead over somebody like Elite Power, Gunite. But at the same time, you never know. Could end up overtaking Gunite. Maybe if it was set the pace and got good footing and all, could end up in the place position. So I'm going to say it's going to be 2, 3, and 4. I don't think the rail, I don't think the outside are going to be have an impact on the race.
Yeah, this is not a very valuable race. More than likely, it's probably going to be between the 2 and the 3. And as you said, we've already seen that before. And Elite Power is 2-0. So maybe third time's a charm, but even then, Gunite at essentially even money, currently 6-5. I think you have to, find something else here. 4 horse Pipeline did jump out to me, but last year this horse ran in the Frigo, ran very well, actually had its best career run of 105, finished behind Cody's Wish and Jackie's Warrior at even a bit of a higher price than the morning line, currently at 12-1. It went off at about 15.5-1 last year. But since that 105, we've seen a 42. However, that was in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile where, I'm pretty sure that horse was eased and just kind of, he got bumped. You don't want to, chance anything there. But even last time out in an optional claiming race at Saratoga, was the heavy favorite, finished almost 10 lengths off the lead.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You're going to have to find value. I think maybe Pipeline can somehow finish second here. I really don't know how you get away from the 2-3 here. This might be a race where, once again, you bet big or don't bet at all, because it's going to more than likely be 3-2 or 2-3, however you want to slice it, more than likely 3-2. But 5 entries with 2 horses that I just think are in a different class in this one. Not a great start in terms of the value to this card, but look, $500,000 purse, it's given out no matter what. So those trainers and connections don't really care what has to be done to get into the winner's circle. But I think it is kind of a match race at this point. And it's essentially just a question of, is third time a charm for Gunite? But moving on to the race number 9, it's going to be another grade 1, the H. Allen Jerkins Memorial Stakes. We're going 7 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds. This purse is $500K. Myself, I'll get this one started. The horse that definitely jumps out to me is going to be the favorite, the 6-horse Arabian Lion, 2-1 currently. I think this horse has the best resume of the field. However, it's only ran at this distance twice, and it is Saratoga debut for this one. But I really think at what we've seen last 2 runs, we've seen a 103 and a 109. And I mean, this horse debuted at a 92. You throw away a Los Alamitos Futures back in Futurity back in December. If you throw that race out, every race has been 92 and up for this 3-year-old. But once again, not a ton of value at 2-1. One horse that did kind of jump out to me, but I'm not sure. It's the 5-horse New York Thunder, currently 5-2. This horse is undefeated, but hasn't really raced at this level. Did beat out Drew's Gold, who's also a horse in this, going to be running in this race. 12-1 on the rail, so not really necessarily a big time challenger as Drew's Gold, but New York Thunder, I think at 5-2, I think that number is a little too short for me to see this horse essentially make its grade 1 debut. Did run a 110 last time out and has been very good, really on all surfaces, synthetic, turf, and dirt, which was last time out. So I'm just keeping an eye there. Not going to make my ticket. The next horse I'm looking at, though, that will make it onto my ticket is Verifying. And look, you have the dream duo of Brad Cox and Flavian Pratt. But this horse hasn't ran at this distance since it broke its maiden last year in August, essentially a year ago, essentially give or take a week at Saratoga. It's been running a mile and a quarter, mile and a 16th. I worry more about, 1-horse races going 2 turns, but that is something to keep in mind, especially, 4-1. I don't know how that value is going to end up. But the other kind of horse that I'm keeping my eye on is the 2-horse. 1 in Vermilion. It's the one thing that does jump out and maybe a little bit of alarm bells. This is going to be its 9th run of the year already, but was pretty good last time out. And going back to the Iowa Derby, ran in 96, currently 10-1. Like I said, doesn't have the numbers that Verifying or New York Thunder or Arabian Lion have, but at 10-1, I'm willing to, pay a little bit to see what was going on with this horse. 1 in Vermilion. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins Memorial Stakes?
Yeah, we pretty much are seeing eye to eye on this one. I've got Arabian Lion down, but I also have Bafford's other horse down because Bafford is the trainer for Arabian Lion. He's got that horse. He's doing his magic with that horse right now. So I think that's a strong play for the winner's circle. But Fort Bragg, the 4-horse, and Joel Rosario in the saddle, Bafford's the trainer at 5-2, also not a bad shot. And that was my 4th horse actually on the ticket. The 2 in between that are number 5, New York Thunder. Gaff Malone, Jose Delgado's the trainer at 5-2. And then 3, Verifying. You know me, if the horse was 99-1, but it's Pratt and Cox, I'm going to put money on it. But the 3-horse Verifying is very strong and had a strong run the last race out, has good earnings per start on it, which I like that, has had a nice rest of 49 days. I was looking at 1 in Vermilion, and one of the things I didn't like is after a show the last time out, coming back to a kind of a little bit better class and only 20 days off. I don't think that's enough. I don't think it's enough for that horse, but 10-1, kind of hard to look past it too.
Definitely.
And then, I forgot my trivia, bar trivia, H. Allen Gherkins Memorial Stakes. 1984 to 2016, it ran as the King's Bishop Stakes. King's Bishop was a well-known thoroughbred that ran in the early 70s. King's Bishop was owned by a gentleman named Craig F. Cullinan Jr., who was the founding president of the Houston Astros. And the trainer for King's Bishop, this Hall of Fame thoroughbred, was H. Allen Gherkins. And that's why in 2017, they did him the honor of changing the name of the race to honor him.
That's awesome. I never ever cease to amaze me what you're gonna pull up for these. I love it. It's great, and it's a lot of history too. I think that's one of the best things about thoroughbred horse racing. Obviously, we have the Secretariat Stakes. if you're a horse racing fan, you don't need Raider Jim to tell you who that's about, or at least you shouldn't. And if you do, go back to your history books. But anyways, it's always nice to kind of hear this because we kind of hear these names, the Farigo, things like that, but we don't really know why. Or where they came from, unless you are in the late 70s, you were watching King's Bishop do this and that, blah blah blah. But for a lot of people, maybe not so much. So it's great to kind of just be brought in, like, oh, okay, interesting. And like I said, a lot of history in horse racing, and I think they do a great job of honoring those who truly do deserve it. I'm still waiting on the Midnight Bourbon Stakes, though. If I make a lot of money, that is going to be my bet. All right, that's going to be my investment. I'm going to have the first off the bench Midnight Bourbon Stakes. But moving on to the actually one of the 3 win and you're in races we're going to be talking about this episode. First one is going to be the Grade 1 Ballerina Handicap. Pull up my notes. This gets you into the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. So as you oh no, do I have that correct?
Filly and Mare Sprint.
Sprint. Thank you. My fault. Yes, I realized that. I pulled it up. I said turf. No, this is on the dirt. Sorry. Filly and Mare Sprint. So this will get you into that, obviously, here at Santa Anita. This is for 3-year-old fillies, 3-year-old and up fillies, I should say. The purse, $500,000. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Ballerina?
This is another one of those that you're going to have to exacta combo some stuff, or maybe trifecta combo some stuff if you want to make some money, because the first 2 horses that I've got down are not value, but it doesn't matter if I stand on my head and read the past performance. It just seems obvious. It's going to be the 6th horse, Echo Zulu. Florent Giroux, Steve Asmussen. This is one of Asmussen's babies, and a heck of a thoroughbred. So watch number 6, Echo Zulu. Going to be a great race, a match race, maybe down the stretch with number 7, the neighbor right next door, Good Night Olive, with Irad Ortiz, Chad Brown's horse. They're at 9-5. So you got 7-5, 9-5. Then I'm going back to my old faithful combination, Flavian Pratt, Brad Cox, the number 2 horse, Matariva. 6-1. That's going to give you some value if they get into the place, if they can pull an upset, as will Steve Asmussen's other horse, number 5, Wicked Halo, at 8-1. That's a real good value on that horse. I don't see a lot of changes happening with either one of those on the line, but keep an eye on them. I don't think Wicked Halo is going to go up or down. Neither will Matariva. Echo Zulu is probably going to end up being a lot less of a value by the time they go to the post.
Yeah, for me, sometimes I have to kind of, I think we all need to be aware of our biases, right? And when it comes to Echo Zulu, might be one of the more biased horses because both myself and Raider Jim were, maybe 100 feet from the finish line on the inner turf at Del Mar in 2021 when this horse won the Breeders' Cup, the Philly Juvenile. And not only won it, but absolutely dominated, essentially start to finish, was very, very impressive. I expected a little more in the Kentucky Oaks, but at the end of the day, that's arguably the toughest race for any filly, at really any age. So no shame in losing out to Secret Oath. The one thing that I will say, the reason I kind of gave Goodnight Olive a little bit of a leg up in this one, excuse me, I have that backwards. The reason I gave Echo Zulu the leg up over Midnight Olive, even though these two did race last year in the Breeders' Cup and Goodnight Olive did take down Echo Zulu. However, I go back for Goodnight Olive, I go back to May 6th at Churchill. This horse lost to the 2 horses you talked about besides Echo Zulu, Matarea and Wicked Halo. This horse finished 3rd as essentially, a very, very heavy favorite. I don't want to hold that too much against him, however, or against her, I should say. But I think that's where the leg up to Echo Zulu, that's where that comes from, at least for me. So I have 6-7, if we are going to, go into that exacta, because I don't know if the box will get you there. But I also had Wicked Halo and Matrea as well as kind of those horses to keep an eye on, see if they go there. I will say for Matarea, last time out, not too good in the Chicago. Once again, was a heavy favorite. ran only an 81. So I think that's maybe why we're seeing this horse at 6-1, which I think is still pretty good value for this horse. And then as you talked about, Wicked Halo, last 6 runs out of this horse have been 90 plus, 8-1. Steve Asmussen, Tyler Gaffleone, a lot of value there. The other horse that might make it onto my ticket, one horse that kind of jumped out to me, is the 8 horse, Caramel Swirl. Jose Alvarado, William Mott teaming up here, 10-1, I think might have the best overall value. This is a horse, if you throw out the Minaret that was back in February at Tampa, this horse has been 95, 96, 98, 96, 95. At 10-1, I'm going to be willing to pay to see if this horse can get into the money, because I like Raider Jim kind of said at the start, we're probably looking at a match race, and you might have to find a play show ticket or, get lucky with the trifecta, get a little exotic with things. I think Caramel Swirl is worth a look. Might not be the best option to finish out that trifecta, but once again, I think 10-1, a lot of value. Probably going to make it onto my card, but this is not a interesting as kind of match races we talked about earlier, but I think we are going to be seeing 6 and 7 kind of dueling it out, and we'll see if Echo Zulu can get a little bit of revenge on Midnight Olive. But moving on to the other win and you're in race, we have for the Breeders' Cup, I should say, race 11. This is going to get you into the Breeders' Cup Longines Turf. It's the grade 1 Sword Dancer Stakes. We're going 1.5 miles on the inner turf. This is for 3-year-olds and up, the purse of 750,000. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Sword Dancer?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. For some reason right now, the early line has the favorite as, let me make sure I got this right. I believe right now it's 7 Stone Age on the outside. My favorite combination, Flavian Pratt, Chad Brown. But I'll tell you, how that horse is being handicapped at 6-5 is a real head scratcher. My favorite is the 6 horse Channel Maker. At 7-2, I like that horse a lot. After that, I like Soldier Rising, Jose Ortiz. And Christophe Clement, who's the trainer for that horse, has actually been the winning trainer for the Sword Dancer Stakes, both in 2021 and 22. History tends to repeat itself. He's familiar with the track. He's familiar with the race. So I kind of like that. That might be a little bit too, what's the word? You're playing the odds in the wrong for the wrong reasons. But at the same time, obviously there's something there. Stone Age possibly third at 6-5. I don't see Stone Age performing and taking over 6 or 1. And then the other one, just to make it interesting, a little better value for your ticket if you want to have a 4th in there and go underneath, the 2 horse Verstappen, 8-1. You can't go wrong. If you pulled a ticket with one, the 5-1, 8-1, and a 7-2, you're not looking at a bad ticket.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. The Stone Age is interesting because not only all the things you kind of brought up at 6-5, this horse hasn't ran since February, and that was
Exactly.
a Qatar. Now, I will say, I think a lot of that is the travel this horse goes through. This might be the most well-traveled horse that we talk about in the history of this show. I mean, you go back, France, Ireland, Great Britain, came to North America, back to Ireland, back to North America, went to looks like Japan, and then Qatar. So that could be definitely a part of it there. But I'm with you. I mean, last time out, the buyer ratings aren't they're exclusive to North America. So if you race outside North America, we're not getting that. So we're getting time for him. This horse ran in 93. And that's like an equivalent of a buyer of about 80, 75 to 80. So it is a little interesting to see 6-5 morning line. I could see maybe this horse being the favorite, but almost even money. That's an interesting one. Still definitely worth a look if that value gets up a little bit. Channel Maker, I agree with you. I think this horse is one to keep an eye on. I do wonder though, this horse has been racing in grade 1s, grade 2s, and grade 3s, but it's only had 2 wins since July of 2022. That's been a span of 8 races. Once again, we're talking about grade 3s, Breeders' Cup races, Man of War, stuff like that. So it's not like he's struggling in optional claiming or anything like that. But it's been a minute, or he's not exactly been in the winner's circle a ton. However, this is race number 55 for this 9-year-old. So while it might not be as experienced as getting in the winner's circle of late, this horse has an absolute ton of experience. Going forward as well, just to kind of finish out the ticket, a horse that definitely jumped out to me was the 5-horse Pioneering Spirit. Look, Irad Ortiz at 8-1. I do like that. 4 straight wins, but the exact opposite of what we talked about with Channel Maker. This horse has been in allowance races and optional claiming, so you do kind of have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But 8-1, and you have a sire like American Pharaoh. I think it's definitely worth a look. One other horse that handicapping was the 3-horse Bolshoi Ballet. Now, this is a horse that hasn't ran in North America since the Breeders' Cup Turf the day after we were there back in 2021. This is a horse that's been in Japan and then Great Britain, which isn't a huge knock, but very similar to what we saw at a Stone Age. Last time out at Ascot, this horse ran in 91 in a time form. Once again, we're looking at, that might get you into the low 80s, but more than likely high 70s. That's interesting for 5-1. However, I will say when you have turf races, especially Breeders' Cup winning your in turf races, you're going to see a very high contingent of the international, a lot of Great Britain horses coming over, and they've had a very good time in these turf races. So I don't want to sleep on them too much. Last horse I do want to bring up, and I do kind of wonder how the odds go, because sometimes you have a horse that has a name that to someone who isn't necessarily a horse fan might just get money thrown their way. And it is the horse you brought up, Verstappen. For if you're a Formula One fan, obviously Max Verstappen, who's, the top runner in the racer in the world right now. So I always kind of wonder about things like that. When you have a horse, I go back to it. I think we talked about, there was a horse, Brando the Bartender. I had to bet on that horse every time it ran. Now I'm not betting, enough to move the dial, but there are people like that do bet enough to move the dial for better or worse. So I wonder kind of how those odds will move at 8-1. At the same time, I think this horse is a pretty good horse. Obviously hasn't been in the high numbers that we've seen out of the favorites, but a 95, 91, 89, 95 in its last 4 races. Definitely worth a look going forward, but I agree with you. I think Channel Maker is probably the class of the field, at least in terms of the North American runners. And we'll see if Stone Age and maybe Bolshoi Ballet can maybe shut me up for my, a bit of doubts going forward. But moving on to the richest race of the weekend, it is the Grade 1 Travers Stakes. It's for 3-year-olds. This is kind of think late summer Kentucky Derby 2.0, or at least that 3-year-old class 2.0. This purse 1.3 million. Once again, 3-year-olds and up. This is not a Breeders' Cup win in your in race, which kind of surprised me, but we are going to see a ton of talent here. I'll get this one started. First and foremost, obviously on the rail, you have Forte, who more than likely would have gone into the Kentucky Derby as the favorite, was a late scratch, ended up running okay. Ran well for a 2-1 favorite in the Belmont. Did lose out to a horse that might actually be my number 1. It's actually the 2-horse Archangelo. Obviously, I give it a little bit of a bump up because this is a horse that has already beaten Forte. Like I said, going back to the Belmont, ran a 102 in that one. However, Forte did kind of bounce back in the Jim Dandy, ran a 105. So those 2 horses, once again, it feels like this is a bit of a theme at Saratoga. Could possibly see a bit of a match race, and we only see 7 entries in this one, so not a huge number. And then the other horse that caught my eye, and I feel like once again I'm falling into the trap. I think the last time we talked about Tappet Trice, I worried that it was going to be Midnight Bourbon 2.0. I still think this horse can get into the money, but it runs at such high classes. It really has to almost be perfect to win. But those are the 3 I'm keeping my eye on. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Travers Stakes?
Yeah, I mean, again, as you said, Forte, that's class of the field right there, and a great draw getting the rail like that. Irad Ortiz in the saddle, 7-5, not a value horse, but definitely hey, you can make a little bit of money on this if you combo your ticket the right way. I'm with you though. I really think Arcangelo is going to be the horse to beat when it comes right down to it. There's one thing about being the class of the field, but being the horse to beat. And I think on Saturday it's going to be Arcangelo. And then I've got Mage in there, the 4 horse. And the only reason last time I was a little down on Mage, still not real high on Mage, but there's been a jockey change, and Flavian Pratt's going to ride Mage in this race. So now you wonder at 4-1, Mage has a chance to maybe even get the place position. Who knows? Could pull the upset. We'll see. And then of course you can't overlook the 5 horse, even though there's only 7 entries. But I can't overlook National Treasure. Bafford's just got a way of bringing the best out of these horses. The higher the level, the better performance you're going to get out of his horses. And a little, again, let me back up. I should have started with this. The Travers Stakes, they actually refer to this entire weekend and this race. A lot of people consider it the bridge between the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup, because this is the most exciting, most highest purses that you're going to find before we get into September and start winding down some of the summer sessions, things like that. So they call it that. It's also named for William R. Travers, who was the president of the old Saratoga Racing Commission, or racing organization. So yeah, a lot of history in this race. Is this the left-handed turn race?
Well, you know what? I shut down my DRF. I'm not sure.
Yeah, one of these is the left-handed turn where they come down and then they.
Oh, I think that was a few earlier, the
Always
really
interesting
long
to
turf
watch.
race, because it was a 3-turner, I think, too. So yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
But this is going to be a good one. Mine are going to I'm sticking with 1, 2, 4, and 5 for my ticket, hoping that somebody can pull the upset on Forte and make it a little more value for my money.
Yeah, I think while we do kind of have I think the 2 very prominent favorites in the 1 and 2 horse with Forte and Arcangelo, I think there's a lot more possibility that we do see a Mage or a National Treasure sneak their way in, or both sneak their way into the money to kind of be the fly in the champagne for the 2 big ones. But it is a little interesting that, you know, almost all of these races, it's essentially splitting hairs between the top 2 and then finding something underneath. I don't think that was planned that way, but it seems to be just the way Saratoga has worked out. But it's going to be a massive weekend at Saratoga. And as we said, lots of money. I like that. The bridge between the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup, I think that's a great way to put it, because this is essentially the biggest weekend we've seen since Belmont Saturday. So with that being said, to kind of turn our attention a little bit closer to home, we do have only one stakes race this weekend at Del Mar. However, it is a big one. It's a grade 2 win, and you're into the Breeders' Cup. Big ass fans, dirt mile. It's race number 10, 250K, the grade 2 Pat O'Brien handicap for 3-year-olds and up. We're going 7 furlongs on the dirt. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Pat O'Brien?
Yeah, now this is unlike the races that we've been talking about at Saratoga. This is a fairly big field. You're talking 11 entries in this one. Pat O'Brien, of course, being a great friend, movie star of the 30s, 40s, 50s, a little bit. His career started to taper in the 60s. Huge friend, though, of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. And those were in the heydays when, if you went to the track, these guys were apparently just all roaming around and sitting there and just having a grand time. Class act, though, known for so many roles, but especially when he played Father Flanagan in the Boys Town movie, and also played Newt Rockne when former President Ronald Reagan was played the Gipper. Yes. And it was Pat O'Brien who delivered that great speech and used that great line in the movie, "Win one for the Gipper." So there's some trivia for you, right? That we don't need.
That's fantastic.
I can't help myself. So 11 entries. I'm going to lead off with my favorite is going to be the 9-horse Anarchist. Right now it's 7-2. Doug O'Neill horse. Like I said, he's not listed in the top 3 percentage-wise, but earnings-wise, he is in. He's definitely doing well for himself. Look for a strong performance from Anarchist on this one. Also liked Spirit of McKenna, the 7-horse. And Joe Bravo is going to be riding this one at 4-1. Really, it's a pretty decent value ticket if you pick these four horses or the four horses I'm going to play at least. 9, 7, 6, Brickyard Ride. Slowed down a little bit. People kind of question it, but I think Brickyard's going to come back on this one. Again, it's a win and you're in. But when the stakes are what they are, not just winning, the $250,000 is not a lot of money compared to these races that we were talking about at Saratoga. But that ability to just punch your ticket and get into the Breeders' Cup, boy, that adds a whole different dimension to the race. 9, Anarchist. 7, Spirit of McKenna. 6, Brickyard Ride. And not really a long shot because Brickyard Ride is currently at 5-1. I like another 5-1 horse out there, and that's number 4, Sir Atticus. And I like that horse because Mike Smith is going to be in the saddle, and Mike Smith is just that guy you don't want to bet against. So, I mean, look at that. You've got Vasquez, Bravo, Hernandez, Mike Smith. Wow. Star-studded.
Yeah, and you know what? You actually kind of just reminded me. Might have been the highlight of my Thursday last week at Del Mar. Standing kind of right there on the rail as the horses came out. Got to give a nice little head nod to Mike Smith. He gave me a nice little head nod back. So, that was maybe the highlight of the day there. Definitely, you don't get that close to too many of the future Hall of Famers in a whole lot of sports. But full disclosure, I don't have the full card on this one, so definitely refer to kind of what Raider Jim said. I do kind of want to piggyback though on Brickyard Ride. As you said, that 79 back in looks like Santa Anita, May 28th. That's 79. Doesn't look great, however, rebounded very well last time out. Excuse me, at Del Mar at the end of July. Ran back to that 101 standard that we're expecting out of him. And you talked about the win and you're in. And also another part of it too, I think for a lot of these horses and the connections, this is a West Coast Breeders' Cup. So I think that kind of changes a lot of the thought process too, is this isn't okay, let's load them up. Let's get how many horses are coming. How can maybe we call up this trainer and we get his horses in. It's not a smooth ride, but it's a ride up the 5. And that changes, I think, a lot of things for the mindset for some of these guys to say, you know what, hey, let's put these guys in. And at the very least, maybe a bit of a measuring stick. Hey, you know what, Brickyard Ride maybe falls a little short, but goes, you know what, I think we're good enough to go to the Breeders' Cup. And who knows, maybe they get that call and say, hey, if you want, you're in. And now all of a sudden you're paying that bill. Well, it's a lot less than if you're going to Keeneland or Churchill or Belmont. Right. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on there. And for the next 2 years, we'll continue to remind you, but for the next 2 years, the Breeders' Cup will be out here on the West Coast. We'll give the honors to Santa Anita this year, and then can't wait for November of 2024. Don't want to look too far ahead, especially, November 2024 is, for most people, kind of scary for political reasons. But anyways, we will have at least the Breeders' Cup to look forward to here at Del Mar going forward. But just something to keep in mind, once again, to see the West Coast horses kind of knowing, hey, it's a little easier to get to the Breeders' Cup, at least, maybe a little cheaper for these guys going forward. But that's all we got for you here on this episode. Raider Jim, any final thoughts for us?
No, it was nice to be able to get through a podcast and we didn't have to bring any bad news to the table. Thank goodness for that. And let's hope that safety continues to be first and foremost, and that there's a nice, safe conclusion to the Del Mar season.
Amen. I completely agree. No news is good news when it comes to the horse racing side of things. My final thoughts, maybe a little more somber. I had kind of final thoughts ready to go, but right before the podcast, I saw that a WWE wrestler who's only 1 year older than me, Bray Wyatt, is what his stage name was. I apologize, I don't have my notes out to see what his actual name was, but I'm not a huge wrestling fan, but I will sit down and watch it. When I was a kid, I loved it. Stone Cold, The Rock, blah blah blah. It just, I think the main message for me, life is short. You never really know, how much time you got with somebody. So always just think, when you're with somebody, I don't want to be too, morbid, but keep in the back of your mind that there is a chance that might be the last time. So savor it, enjoy it. And then also kind of on that same token, continuing to think about the people out in Maui and Lahaina. It's the fires are done, but my goodness, the numbers, it's scary. As somebody who's gone through 2 wildfires, I don't even want to call them wildfires anymore because it pales in comparison to not. I don't care about the structures. I don't care about stuff like that. Some of the stories we're hearing about kids and things like that, you know, they're thinking it could be close to 1,000 people dying. It's almost unfathomable to me. But if you're able, donate. Think about donating. Whatever they need or whatever you can find. Make sure you do your research as well. There are tools out there to make sure that you're donating to the right places. Unfortunately, these situations open the door for a lot of the unsavory folk to come and take advantage of you. So if you are going to donate, please do your little bit of homework. Make sure you know where your money's going. Like I said, I'm sure there are tools on the internet that can get you pointed in the right direction. But
and if you're in the Orange County, San Diego County areas, and you got a big backyard and a big heart, and you're an animal lover, they had about 24 doggies come in today to the Helen Woodward Center. So they're going to clean them up and check them out, and they will all be up for adoption in just a matter of days. So consider that as well.
Amen. And I will also say I actually did for my senior project. I volunteered at the Helen Woodward Animal Center, and I tell you what, it's not easy, but it's very rewarding. You know, you think you're going to go play with dogs, but you're probably going to be scooping some horse stuff up. But it was great to kind of be there and be out of my comfort zone. And they do such great work, and it was really, really awesome. I always drive backside to get to Del Mar. I come down San Diego Road through Rancho Santa Fe, and it was good to see right before you make the left towards the polo fields, Helen Woodward's still right there, still doing exactly what they're meant to do. So keep all that in mind if you're able to help out in any way possible going forward. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the original Call to Post, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care and good luck.
That's smart.